It was a decision I made on a whim, or at least, that's how it seemed when I first set foot into the untamed wilderness of the Rocky Mountains. I had always felt a pull toward nature, the wild, untapped beauty of it. I had no real survival experience, only a thirst for adventure, a backpack full of supplies, and a sense of determination that I would prove myself. I set out early, the sun just beginning to rise, casting long shadows across the rugged terrain. My map wasn't detailed, but I had studied enough to know that getting lost could easily happen. I thought about my small cabin, my family, and the comforts of modern life. There would be no cell service, no internet, and no way for anyone to reach me. This was what I wanted, escape. But the beauty of nature quickly turned into its wild, unpredictable side. The forests seemed endless, the trail often disappearing under thick foliage. By nightfall I was already feeling the pressure. My backpack was heavier than I thought, my legs sore, and the air was thinner than I was used to. I built a small fire and settled into a makeshift shelter, praying my survival skills would keep me alive. The next morning I woke up groggy and dehydrated. I realized I had misjudged how much water I needed for the first leg of my journey. The nearest stream was miles away, and I had to ration my remaining supply. As I trekked through dense underbrush, I felt the weight of my decision. Every step felt heavier, but the thought of reaching the stream kept me going. I finally found it, but it was small, slow-moving, and muddy. I filtered the water through my makeshift gear, but even then I couldn't be sure it was completely safe. By the fourth day my stomach started to churn. I was weak, light-headed, and felt the unmistakable signs of illness. The water I drank wasn't clean enough, and now I was paying the price. I had to make camp and rest, hoping the worst would pass. My body ached, and I couldn't focus on anything but the exhaustion. The wilderness was starting to feel like a cruel test, one I wasn't sure I would pass. On day 5 I woke up feeling better though still weak. I decided to push on even if it was just a short distance. Along the way, I found a small patch of wild berries. They weren't much, but they gave me enough energy to continue. I built a fire and set up my camp near a small hill, thinking the elevated position might give me a better view of the area. The next few days were about getting back on my feet. I started practicing firemaking using flint and steel. I became more adept at finding food, foraging for edible plants, setting up traps for small game, and learning how to use everything the environment offered. Each success, no matter how small, felt like a victory. I also discovered an abandoned cabin deep in the woods. It was old and weathered, with broken windows and a door barely hanging on its hinges. Inside I found remnants of a life long past. A tattered blanket, old cans of food, a rusted lantern. It was a reminder that people had once lived here, far away from civilization. But there was no sign of what happened to them, and I wondered if they, too, had been swallowed by the wilderness. On day 10 I made an exciting discovery. A cave tucked behind a waterfall. It was a perfect shelter, hidden from the elements and well concealed. Inside I found the walls carved with strange symbols. They looked ancient, like the markings of early humans or perhaps something older. I spent hours exploring the cave and documenting the symbols, but no matter how hard I tried, I couldn't decipher their meaning. Still, the cave offered me safety and a sense of belonging in the vast wilderness. As the days passed, the loneliness started to weigh heavily on me. There was no one to talk to, no one to share my experiences with. The silence was overwhelming. I began to question whether I had made the right choice in venturing out here. The days blurred together. The physical pain from my body's constant exertion, combined with the mental toll of being so isolated, was starting to break my resolve. By day 15, a violent storm swept through the area. The wind howled, rain poured down in sheets, and the temperature dropped sharply. I sought shelter in the cave, but the storm didn't let up for 2 full days. I was trapped, forced to ride out the storm with nothing but my thoughts for company. It felt like the wilderness was testing me, pushing me to my limits. I barely slept during those 2 days, the fear of being swept away in the storm always in the back of my mind. When the storm finally passed, I emerged to find the landscape changed. Trees had fallen, and the path I had been following was now unrecognizable. But something inside me shifted. I realized that I had survived the storm, that I had endured something far harsher than anything I had faced before. The wilderness was relentless, but so was I. I had come to terms with the fact that I might not have control over everything, but I could control how I responded. On day 20, I began to explore the surrounding area more intentionally. I stumbled upon a group of deer drinking from a creek, their graceful movements reminding me that life continued in this wild place, regardless of my struggles. It was a moment of connection to something larger than myself. The world was vast and untamed, and yet there was beauty in its chaos. The following days were a period of reflection. I spent less time searching for food and more time contemplating what had brought me here. I began to realize that surviving in the wilderness was about more than just food and shelter. It was about adapting, letting go of my expectations, and being present in the moment. The beauty of the wilderness was not in its challenges but in the way it forced me to face myself, to strip away the distractions of modern life, and to find peace in the simplicity of existence. As the days went on, my confidence grew. My skills improved and my body became stronger. I had learned how to find food and water, how to navigate the terrain, and how to make the wilderness feel like home. I felt a deep connection to the land, to the trees, the animals, and the earth itself. It was as though the wilderness had become a part of me, and I had become a part of it. On the 30th day, I made my way back to the trailhead. My body was thinner, my skin weathered by the harsh elements, but my mind was clearer, sharper. I had survived, but more than that, I had discovered something deeper about myself. I had learned that survival wasn't just about making it through. It was about living fully, about accepting the challenges that life throws at you and emerging from them stronger. The wilderness had given me the clarity I had been searching for my whole life. When I returned to civilization, I wasn't the same person who had ventured into the mountains weeks ago. I was more at peace, more grounded, and more connected to the world around me. The wilderness had changed me in ways I couldn't have anticipated, and I knew that I would carry its lessons with me for the rest of my life.